Ultimately what it is a mechanism for a directionless and purposeless ruling elite to provide identity and affirm their purpose and coherence in an age where they've lost all their coherence and purpose. I mean, really, since the end of the Cold War and we saw the end of the political left and the political right, the establishment has been lost in terms of its purpose. You know, anti-communism is 40 years old now. What can you use to bring people together? Well, you've got this new language, and it's actually the one French philosopher, strangely, that I thought was most missing in Sylvie's book is Bourdieu. Because Bourdieu wrote a book called La Distinction, or Distinctions, where he looks at mechanisms for ruling establishments to use cultural ways of self-identifying with one another, whether that be the university they went to or language codes that they use. When you don't use one of their language codes, they know you're not one of them. Woke has migrated out of its domestic context to becoming a form of international relations as well. You know, when the Biden administration basically dictates that countries that don't adhere to new American values, by which he means gender recognition, critical race theory, then those countries will be treated as pariahs. It becomes a mechanism for disciplining not just people at home, but people internationally too. It'd be interesting to see if there's a pushback on that front. You know, we should get away from the extreme examples of, transgender people not being able to have children, to the recognition of what Frank is pointing to, which is they've already turned your children against you. You know, this is a cultural revolution on a scale we haven't seen since the Chinese one. And we know where that ended up. I know a very good friend of mine, her husband hasn't been able to speak to his children ever since the Gender Recognition Act, because the children just think he's mad to say, what's wrong with people identifying as whoever they want to be? What's wrong with that? And so it's dividing families, it's creating a generational conflict. And of course, who does that benefit? Well, the powers that be benefit from a society that's broken up into a series of conflicting minority groups. If we allow it to atomize the rest of us, to prevent us from presenting a unifying agenda, that's when it becomes a real problem. In any other world, people who came to you and said, we don't like your traditions and we don't like the language that you use and you need to adopt this language, would be seen for what they are, which is imperialists. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they're not being called out.